My family used me as a free babysitter for years, but when an accident left me in a wheelchair and I asked for help, they vanished. And now that I've recovered, they came back begging. I blocked them all. I'm 23 years old. I work in digital marketing, and it's been like 6 months since I basically cut contact with most of my family. And honestly, I still don't know if I did the right thing, but I don't regret it either, you know? The thing is that for years, literal years, I was the unofficial babysitter for my older siblings, taking care of their 4 kids almost every weekend and many weeknights, and I thought that meant something. That we were close. That they loved me. But turns out they just needed me. And the difference between those two things, I learned the hard way. I guess I should start by explaining how I ended up being the family babysitter. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings, and when I started college, my 3 older siblings already had kids. Victoria, the oldest at 30, has 2 kids aged 8 and 6. Melissa, who's 28, has 2 daughters. One who's 12 named Emma and another who's 9. And James, my brother who's 35, has a 10-year-old son. So when I was like 18 or 19 and in college, they started asking me to watch them from time to time, a night here, a Saturday there, and I'd say yes because I thought that's how families worked, that you helped each other out. Plus, I liked the kids, especially Emma, who was always super sweet with me and would come to me to tell me her things. At first, it was occasional, but somehow, I don't know exactly how it happened, it became a constant thing. By the time I was 21, I was basically watching all 4 kids almost every weekend. Victoria and Melissa especially would call me all the time. Like on Thursday, they'd already be texting me asking if I could do Saturday or Friday night, or we need you to come early Sunday because we have to do this and that. And I always said yes because, well, they were my nieces and nephews, right? And my siblings would tell me things like, "You're the best aunt in the world. We wouldn't know what to do without you. The kids adore you." And I believed it all. I thought they really appreciated what I was doing for them. They never paid me, by the way. Not once. James is literally rich, works in finance or something and has a huge house, but he never offered to give me even gas money. Victoria and Melissa didn't either. And when I once hinted that it would be nice if they helped me with something because I was spending a lot on transportation and food for the kids, they told me that family doesn't charge each other. That was for selfish people. And I felt bad for even mentioning it, like I was being a bad person for even thinking it. My dad still lives here in the city. He's like the one who always tries to keep the peace in the family, but he never really gets involved in anything. You know what I mean? He's one of those dads who says family is family and that you should get along, but when there are real problems, he doesn't do anything more than say everyone should calm down. My mom lives in another state. She moved years ago after they got divorced, and although we talk from time to time, it's not like we have a super close relationship. She was always a bit distant, even when we were kids. The thing is, I was so stuck in this role of the babysitter aunt that I basically had no social life of my own. My friends from college stopped inviting me out because I was always busy watching kids. Dating was almost impossible because on weekends I was always with my nieces and nephews, and if I tried to say no, Victoria and Melissa would make me feel terrible. They'd say things like, "I thought you cared about us. The kids are going to be so sad. I had already promised Emma you were coming." And I'd give in. I always gave in. This went on like this until about 9 months ago. I had gone out to buy some things for my apartment. I was in my car, crossing an intersection with a green light, and a guy who was going full speed ran the red light and hit me on the driver's side. I don't remember much of the impact itself, just that suddenly I was on the ground, there were people screaming, and everything hurt, but especially my legs and hands. Turns out I fractured my left femur, messed up my right knee really bad, and both hands were super injured, with fractures in several fingers and my left wrist also fractured. The doctors told me I wouldn't be able to walk for at least 6 months, and that my hands would also need a long time to heal. And that basically, I was going to need help with everything because I couldn't even hold a glass of water properly. I was in the hospital for like 2 weeks. And this is where everything started to change, though I still didn't see it clearly at that moment. Victoria came to see me once, stayed for like half an hour, and the whole time she was looking at her phone. Melissa also came, brought me some flowers, which I couldn't even put in water by myself, and told me she'd pray for me. James sent a message saying he hoped I'd get better soon, but that he was very busy with work. My dad did come more often, like every 3 days, but his visits were awkward. He didn't know what to say and would just sit there in silence most of the time. When I finally got out of the hospital and went back to my apartment, that's when the nightmare really started. I couldn't do anything by myself. I had to use a wheelchair because I couldn't walk, and my hands were so injured I couldn't even push the chair well, or cook, or bathe myself, or even open the door easily. I thought my siblings were going to help, you know? That they were going to organize themselves to come see me, bring me food, help me with basic things. I had spent years taking care of their kids without charging them anything. I thought now they were going to give me back some of that favor. But no. Victoria sent me a message saying she was very sorry about what happened to me, but that with the kids and work she couldn't come help me. Melissa said the same thing, that her daughters needed her and that she couldn't leave them alone. James didn't even give excuses, just said he hoped I'd recover soon. And so I was left, alone in my apartment, unable to do almost anything for myself. The person who ended up saving me was Dorothy, my neighbor next door who's like 68 years old. She found out about my accident and started coming every day. She'd bring me food, help me bathe, clean my apartment, go to the grocery store for me, even take me to my doctor's appointments. And Dorothy wasn't even family. She was just a kind neighbor who saw that I was in a terrible situation and decided to help. We started talking a lot during those months, and she became like the mother figure I never really had. She'd listen to me, make me laugh when I was depressed, remind me that things were going to get better even when I didn't believe it. 3 months went by like that. 3 complete months where I barely heard from my siblings. Victoria would send me messages from time to time asking how I was, but they were those generic messages, where you can tell they're sending them out of obligation, not because they really care. Melissa, too. She'd send me those messages like, "I hope you're doing better and I'm sending you blessings," but she never offered to come or help with anything concrete. James straight up disappeared. I think he sent me like 2 messages in those 3 months, and then came the moment that changed everything. I was already starting to walk again with crutches. My hands were still weak, but at least I could use them for basic things, and one afternoon Melissa calls me. She hadn't called me, just messages, in like 2 months, so I thought maybe it was to see how I was, or to apologize for being so absent. But no. The first thing she says to me after a quick hello is, "Hey, I know you've been recovering, but you're better now, right? It's just that I need you to watch the girls this Saturday, because I have a super important event, and I can't take them." I was literally silent for several seconds. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman hadn't lifted a finger to help me during the worst 3 months of my life, but now that she needed something from me, there she was, like nothing had happened. And I told her, "No, Melissa, I can't. I'm still not well. I can barely walk with crutches." And she got like defensive immediately, told me that enough time had passed already, that she really needed this favor, that it was just for a few hours. I told her no again. And then she started with the speech about how family helps each other out, that I had always been so good with the kids, that the girls missed me so much. That last part hurt because it was true that I missed my nieces and nephews, especially Emma, who had always been the most attached to me. But something in me had changed during those 3 months of being alone, of seeing how Dorothy, a stranger, had done more for me than my own family. And I told her, "You know what, Melissa? Where was this energy about family helping each other when I was in the hospital and couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself?" And she was quiet for a moment and then said that was different, that she had responsibilities, that she couldn't leave her daughters. And I told her, "And I spent years taking care of your daughters without charging anything, putting my life on pause. And when I needed you, you weren't there." And I hung up on her. I started crying after that call. Not because I felt bad about what I said to her, but because I was finally realizing something I probably should have seen years ago. To my siblings, I was only useful when I could do something for them. They didn't care about me as a person. They cared about me as a free babysitter. And that realization hurt so much. But it was also like liberating in some weird way. Victoria called me 2 days later. Melissa had obviously told her what happened, and Victoria came with the whole attitude. Like I'm the older sister and you're going to listen to me? She told me I was being selfish, that Melissa had only asked me for a simple favor, that I was exaggerating. I told her if it was so simple then she could watch Melissa's daughters, or Melissa could pay someone since apparently it was never a problem to expect me to do it for free for years. Victoria got even angrier and told me I had changed, that I wasn't the same anymore. that the accident had made me bitter. And I told her, no, Victoria. The accident opened my eyes. I realized that you guys only want me when I'm useful to you. She told me I was being dramatic, that they had been busy, that I didn't understand how hard it was to be a mother. And I literally told her that if it wasn't for Dorothy, I probably would have ended up much worse, because nobody from my family was there. And she said that Dorothy probably didn't have much to do. That's why she had time. As if that justified anything. You know? As if the fact that Dorothy had time made it okay that my own siblings abandoned me. My dad also got involved in the drama, of course. He called me and told me he understood I was upset, but that family was important, that I shouldn't let this separate me from my siblings. And I asked him if he thought it was okay that none of my siblings had helped me when I needed them most, and he got uncomfortable and said, well, everyone has their busy lives. You don't have kids, so you don't understand. And that's when I realized my dad also thought I should be available for everyone, because my life was less important than my siblings' lives with kids. James sent me a message somewhere in there, in the middle of all this, saying he didn't want to get into drama, but that he thought I should consider forgiving Victoria and Melissa. He didn't even apologize for not being there. He just told me I should be the one to take the first step to fix things. And I responded that I had nothing to fix, that they were the ones who had failed me, not the other way around. Victoria then suggested we all get together for lunch at a cafe to talk things out like adults. And I accepted. Honestly, I don't know why. I guess part of me still had hope that maybe they'd recognize they had been wrong, that they'd apologize. We went to a cafe near my apartment because I still couldn't drive, and Dorothy took me. She waited for me in the car. I love her. I arrived and there they were, all three of them. Victoria, Melissa, and James, sitting together like a united front. The conversation was basically the three of them telling me I was being irrational and selfish. Victoria said we had all gone through difficult times and that family should forgive each other. Melissa cried, literally cried, saying that she had wanted to help me but that she hadn't been able to, that she felt terrible. And James was just there nodding, like they were being super reasonable, and I was the crazy one. I told them it wasn't about forgiving or not forgiving. It was about the fact that I had finally realized that our relationship had always been one-sided, me giving and them receiving, and that it wasn't going to be like that anymore. Melissa told me I was young and that I didn't understand what it was like to have kids, that someday when I had my own kids I'd understand. And I told her that precisely because I don't have kids is why I realized they had used me, because all my free time for years had been for their kids, not for building my own life. Victoria said nobody had forced me, that I had offered to help. And technically that was true at first, but later it had become an expectation, an unspoken obligation, and when I tried to say no, they made me feel guilty until I gave in. The lunch ended badly. They wanted me to say I was going to go back to helping them with the kids, that I was going to leave the resentment behind and go back to being the babysitter aunt. And I wasn't going to do that. I told them, if they wanted someone to watch their kids, they could pay a babysitter like everyone else does, or ask each other for favors, but that I wasn't going to be available anymore. And I left. Like a week after that disastrous lunch, James sent me a message. It was weird because James almost never started conversations with me, so I knew something was going on. He told me he needed to tell me something I probably wasn't going to like, but that I deserved to know. Turns out Victoria and Melissa had been talking with him about cutting off my contact with the kids as punishment for not wanting to help them anymore. They were literally planning to tell the kids I was very busy and that I wouldn't be able to see them anymore, using the kids as a weapon to make me feel bad and force me to come back. That completely broke my heart. One thing is for my sisters to be mad at me, but to use the kids like that, especially knowing how close I was with Emma, was cruel. James told me he had tried to tell them that was wrong, but that Victoria especially was super set on it. He told me he was telling me because he thought I should know, but that he also didn't want to get too involved in the problem. Typical James, giving me information but not really doing anything to help. About a month passed without much drama. I was focusing on my recovery, going back to work little by little, spending time with Dorothy and with a couple of friends from college I had managed to reconnect with after years. And then Victoria calls me, like 11 at night, crying. Her youngest daughter had had an accident. Nothing super serious, but she needed someone to stay with her oldest son while she went to the emergency room. And she asked me if I could go. And I didn't go. I told her I hoped her daughter was okay, but that I couldn't help her. And she started yelling at me on the phone, saying this was an emergency. How could I be so heartless? That this proved I was just being vengeful and mean. And I told her to call Melissa, or James, or my dad, or to pay someone. And I hung up on her. I felt terrible afterwards. I'm not going to lie. It was an emergency, and part of me wanted to help. But another part of me knew that if I said yes once, I was going to go back to the same cycle. I was going to show them that they could treat me however they wanted, and I'd be there when they needed me. So I stayed firm in my decision, even though it hurt. My dad obviously called me the next day. Victoria's daughter was fine. It had just been a scare, but he was furious with me. He told me I had crossed a line, that one thing was to be angry, and another was to deny Victoria help in an emergency. I explained that Victoria had other options, that I wasn't her only alternative, but he insisted that family should be there for each other, and I told him where was that energy when I needed them. He had no answer for that. He just said I was being immature and that I should reconsider my attitude. After that, I blocked Victoria and Melissa on everything. Phone, social media, email, everything. I kept contact with Emma directly, because she was already 12 and had her own phone, and I explained to her it wasn't because of her, that I still loved her and wanted to know about her, but that I needed space from her mom for a while. Emma told me she understood, that her mom had been talking badly about me at home but that she didn't think I was bad. That gave me some comfort. Like 2 weeks later, I received a letter from Melissa. Yes, a physical letter, sent by mail. It was long, like 4 pages handwritten, and basically it was a list of all the reasons why I was wrong and a bad person. It said I was breaking up the family, that the kids were confused and sad because they didn't see me anymore, that I was being selfish and vengeful, that someday I was going to regret this. It also said she had forgiven me for all the times I had failed as an aunt, never specified which ones, and that I should be able to forgive her. And it ended saying that if I really loved my nieces and nephews, I would do the right thing and go back to being part of their lives, in the role I had always had. I read the letter once, cried a little, and then threw it away. I wasn't going to respond because I knew there was nothing I could say that she would understand. In her mind, she was the victim, and I was the villain who had decided to abandon the family on a whim. The final breaking point was when I realized my dad was passing my information to Victoria and Melissa. I had told him I was considering moving to a new apartment, closer to my work, and suddenly Victoria knew the exact address of the building I was looking at. That scared me and made me angry at the same time. I asked my dad directly, and he admitted that yes, he had shared information because he thought we were eventually going to reconcile, and he wanted to keep them informed about my life. I told him that was an invasion of my privacy, and that he had no right to share my things without my permission. So I changed my phone number. I gave the new one only to Emma, to Dorothy, to my mom, though she and I don't talk much, and to a few friends. I didn't give the number to my dad, or to James, and obviously not to Victoria or Melissa. It was liberating but also sad, you know? Because it meant I was officially cutting ties with most of my family. My mom called me like a month after all this. She lives in another state and isn't very involved in family dramas, but Victoria had apparently contacted her to complain about me. My mom asked me what was going on. I told her the whole story, and she sighed and told me she understood my point but that maybe I should consider forgiving because life was short and family was important. But she said it in a gentle way, not like my dad, who was basically ordering me to fix things. I told her I appreciated her opinion, but that I needed to do what was best for me. It's been 6 months since all this. 6 months since I decided to set boundaries and cut myself off from my siblings. Sometimes I feel guilty, especially when I think about my nieces and nephews and how they must be processing all this. Emma and I still talk. She sends me messages often, and from time to time we see each other to get ice cream or something. Always in secret because Melissa wouldn't approve. Emma tells me things about her life, about school, about her friends, and I try to be a support for her without getting involved in her relationship with her mom. I went back to my life. Or rather, I built a new one. I reconnected with friends from college, started going out more, met a guy who's cute and treats me well, dedicated myself more to my work, and I even got promoted recently. Dorothy is still my favorite neighbor and we get together for tea like twice a week. She tells me she's proud of me for setting boundaries, that many people don't have the courage to do it with family. Do I regret it? Some days, yes. A little. I don't regret setting boundaries. That was necessary, but it does hurt that my family preferred to cut me off rather than recognize they were wrong. I guess deep down, I expected that at some point Victoria or Melissa would call me to really apologize, to say we understand we failed you and we're sorry. But that never happened, and probably never will. Last week, Dorothy asked me if I would ever consider reconciling with my siblings if they took the first step with a real apology. And honestly, I don't know what I answered. I think I said maybe, but that it would have to be a real apology, not just words, so I'd go back to watching their kids. It would have to be a real acknowledgement that they used me, that they abandoned me when I needed them most, and a genuine commitment to change the dynamic of our relationship. But as long as that doesn't happen, I'm fine being the aunt that her nieces and nephews only see in secret, being the daughter who changed her number to get away from her dad, being the sister who set boundaries and refused to go back, to being the free babysitter. For the first time in years, I feel like my life is mine, that my time is mine. And although it still hurts, and probably always will hurt a little, I also feel freer than I've felt in a long time. And I guess that has to be enough for now.